Have you ever noticed a man who seems perfectly content in his own silence? He's successful, composed, and entirely independent. To the world, he looks like a fortress of strength. But behind that calm exterior lies a complex psychological transformation that only happens after years of being alone. Today, we're diving deep into the hidden world of the long-term solitary man. We're exploring why he pulls away when someone gets close, why his silence is his greatest weapon, and what happens to his heart when he finally decides to let someone in. This isn't just a story about being single. It's a journey into the rewiring of the human soul. Chapter 1. The Armor of Independence. In the beginning, solitude feels like a choice, a breath of fresh air. After a breakup or a period of chaos, a man discovers the beauty of control. He controls his schedule, his space, and most importantly, his emotions. He becomes a master of self-reliance. In Western culture, we celebrate this alpha independence, but psychology tells us that after the second or third year of consistent solitude, something shifts. The independence is no longer a choice, it becomes a survival mechanism. He stops looking for a hand to hold when things get tough. He learns to suppress the urge to vent, to cry, or to celebrate small wins with others. He builds a world where he is the king, the soldier, and the citizen, all at once. But a kingdom of one is still a lonely place, even if the king refuses to admit it. For a man who has lived alone for years, a new relationship isn't just about love, it's a threat. He has spent years building a routine that keeps him mentally stable. When a woman enters his life, he sees potential chaos. He asks himself, is she worth losing my peace for? This is why these men often seem emotionally unavailable. They aren't incapable of feeling, they are terrified of being dismantled. They test their partners, not out of malice, but out of a desperate need for safety. They observe the small things, how you react to stress, how you handle his silence, and whether you respect his boundaries. There is a specific kind of loneliness that hits a man at 2 a.m. It's not a loud, crying sadness. It's a quiet realization that his victories belong only to him. This silence rewires his brain. He becomes highly selective. He no longer chases because he has realized that the wrong company is much more exhausting than being alone. In Europe and America, where individualism is high, this psychological trait is becoming a silent epidemic. These men value depth over surface. They would rather have no one than someone who doesn't understand their silence. Chapter 4. The Fortress of Routine. In the bustling cities of London, Berlin, or New York, solitude isn't just a state of being, it's a fortress. For the man who has spent years alone, his daily routine is his sanctuary. Every morning, the way he brews his coffee, the silence of his apartment, and the predictability of his evening workout are the bricks that hold his mental health together. To an outsider, this might look like rigidity or even obsessive-compulsive behavior. But in psychology, we call this compensatory control. When a man lacks the emotional anchor of a partner, he anchors himself to his habits. If you enter his life and disrupt that coffee ritual or question his gym schedule, you aren't just suggesting a change, you are shaking the very foundation of his stability. This is why many long-term single men in the West prioritize their me time above all else. It is the only place where they feel safe from the unpredictable storms of human emotion. Chapter 5. The Observer Effect. Have you ever noticed how a solitary man watches a room? He doesn't dominate the conversation, he maps it. Because he has spent so much time in his own head, his observational skills become razor-sharp. He notices the micro-expressions on your face, the slight tighten of your jaw when you're annoyed, or the way your eyes soften when you're truly happy. He is a silent psychologist of his own environment. This observer effect makes him incredibly discerning. In a world of fast dating and swipe culture, he is the slow burner.
He isn't looking for a spark that fades in a week. He is looking for congruence. He wants to know if your words match your actions over months, not days. This can be frustrating for someone wanting immediate passion, but for the man who has been alone, time is the only currency that proves truth. We must address the elephant in the room. Why did he choose this path? For many, the road to long-term solitude is paved with the ghosts of past betrayals. In modern psychology, we see a rise in dismissive, avoidant attachment styles among men who have been deeply hurt. At some point, his brain made a subconscious calculation. The pain of being alone is 4 out of 10, but the pain of being betrayed is 10 out of 10. I will choose the 4 every single day. He has rationalized his loneliness as a form of protection. When you try to get close to him, you aren't just fighting his current wall, you are fighting every person who ever let him down. He is waiting for the other shoe to drop. He expects you to leave, because everyone else did. Breaking through this requires more than just love. It requires a radical level of consistency that most people aren't willing to give. One of the most fascinating traits of the long-term solitary man is how he processes feelings. Instead of feeling his emotions, he thinks them. If he feels sad, he reads a book on philosophy. If he feels lonely, he watches a documentary on space. He has turned his heart into a library. This intellectualization is a brilliant defense mechanism. It allows him to experience life without the messy, raw edge of vulnerability. In European intellectual circles, this is often mistaken for sophistication, but in reality, it is a shield. He can discuss the theory of love for hours, but the moment you ask him how he feels about you, he might freeze. His brain is a high-speed processor, but his emotional heart is still running on an old, fragile operating system. He needs a partner who can speak both languages, the language of the mind and the silent language of the soul. Chapter 8. The Cracks in the Armor. No fortress is truly impenetrable. Even for the man who has mastered the art of being alone, there comes a moment of critical realization. It usually happens during a period of silence, perhaps after a long day of work or during a quiet walk through a rain-slicked city. He looks at his life, perfectly organized and flawlessly stable, and realizes it is also perfectly empty. This is the psychological threshold. The very walls he built to protect his peace have now become the bars of his cage. He begins to understand that a life without risk is a life without growth. For the first time in years, the fear of remaining the same becomes greater than the fear of being hurt. This is where the transformation begins, not with a loud bang, but with a quiet internal yes to the possibility of someone else. Chapter 9. The Slow Opening. When this man finally decides to let someone in, it's a process of micro steps. He won't give you his whole heart in a weekend. Instead, he offers small territories of his life. First, he shares a book he loves. Then he tells you a story from his childhood that he hasn't told anyone in a decade. Finally, he lets you see his unfiltered self, the man behind the professional mask and the intellectual shield. In the West, we often mistake this slowness for a lack of passion, but in reality, it is the highest form of respect. He is inviting you into a space he has spent years guarding. Every time he chooses to be vulnerable, he is performing a psychological miracle. He is rewiring his brain to trust again, one conversation at a time. Chapter 10. The Power of Intentional Love. In a world obsessed with hookups and temporary thrills, the love of a formerly solitary man is a rare vintage. Because he has lived without love for so long, he does not take it for granted. He doesn't just fall in love, he stands in love. His commitment is rooted in logic as much as emotion. He has analyzed the cost of companionship and decided that you are worth every bit of it. This is intentional love. He is the man who remembers the small details, who stays steady when things get chaotic, and who provides a level of emotional consistency that is hard to find in the modern age. He isn't looking for someone to complete him. He is already complete. He is looking for someone to share the journey with. Ultimately, the goal of this journey isn't to stop being alone, but to find someone with whom solitude feels even better. Psychology shows us that the healthiest relationships are those where two independent souls choose to walk side by side without losing themselves. To the man who has been alone for a long time, "I love you" sounds like "I trust you with my silence." If you are that man, know that your journey has given you a depth that others may never reach. And if you love that man, be patient. The view from the top of his mountain is worth the long climb. Because when a heart that has been silent for years finally speaks, it has the most beautiful things to say.